Good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also known as the Urban Translator and the President of United Peace, Inc. We got a very interesting show. We're going to talk about the indictment of former President Trump and the fact that he turned himself in today for the arraignment. We're going to talk about Danny Davis, the great congressman of the 7th Congressional District, the elder Democrat on the House Ways and Means Committee, and the importance of why he made the decision to run to be reelected. Also, we're going to talk about the wonderful things what the mayor, Brandon Johnson of the city of Chicago, is doing. He said that this is a multi-generational, multicultural, and there's enough for everyone movement. That's inclusive of the wonderful things that he's doing for the teachers, to the point that now not CPS, but the CPD police union is asking for some of the wonderful things that Brandon is doing for the CTU membership. Wonderful thing. And now that Brandon is the mayor, he's talking to and with the owners of the bears. And without further ado, let me please say that this show is being produced by none other than the chairman of the United in Peace, Inc., none other than my wife, Terry Marsh Bradley. And I got two great technical people. I got to say people because one is a woman and one is a man. But they're the young generation, so they let me know that, hey, Gator, you may have a Timex watch, but they know how to get your message out on TikTok. Without further ado, to God be the glory. That's my story. Let's go to work.
Davis says he's good for one more term in Congress. The 82-year-old Davis has served 14 terms, 28 years, and is on the powerful Ways and Means Committee. He announced today he plans to run for a 15th term in 2024. Davis has pumped millions of federal dollars into his 7th Congressional District, which includes Chicago's West Side and West Suburbs.
So yeah, I'm going to work until my days are done. I'm going to work until my days are done. At my church, we say, I'll cease from sorrow. There'll be no tomorrow. I'm going to work until my days are done.
Davis has sponsored 355 bills. 9 of them became laws. Chicago Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin had been eyeing a possible run if Davis didn't, and tells the Sun-Times she's still keeping her options open.
The former president of the United States now officially arrested and formally arraigned on a slew of federal criminal charges. Donald Trump's motorcade spotted heading to the federal courthouse from his Miami hotel before he pled not guilty to the 37-count indictment against him, charges under the Espionage Act.
You know, it's very important to know how your government is working for you. Because right now, everything is changing. Who would ever thought that a former president would be indicted? And who would ever have thought that the Republican Party will pretty much act like that's not important when the followers of Trump attacked this government, capital of the United States, January 6, 2021. Individuals that was involved in that has been found guilty, sent to the penitentiary. And then the ultra-right organizations, the Proud Boys and those type of guys, has been charged with sedition and found guilty. And Trump is continuing to run for office as if that don't mean anything, and talking about giving them a pardon. Well, there's 2 more indictments that Trump is going to end up getting indicted for. One in Georgia, and there's another one that's also a federal indictment. So let us move on to what the next part of the show is, because I want to get all this in to you before I have to sign off.
January had pushed CPS to change the policy, but then Mayor Lori Lightfoot insisted it should be a matter of negotiations. But with former CPS teacher Brandon Johnson now mayor, things have changed, and so will the policy. Mayor Brandon Johnson exchanging hugs with a pair of teachers today after announcing plans to grant up to 12 weeks of paid family leave to CPS employees. It gives them the same time off provided to some 32,000 city employees under a policy that went into effect for them last fall.
With the creation of this policy, our teachers and school leaders can not only show up for their students, but for their own families.
The policy would grant leave to eligible employees whether they grow their families through birth, adoption, or fostering, and it would apply to either parent. One teacher getting emotional sharing her story, she had to step away from teaching after the birth of her second child.
6 weeks is just not enough time, no matter what path you had to take to become a parent. The expansion to 12 weeks of paid leave would have transformed my life. It would have enabled me to stay in the field.
CPS CEO Pedro Martinez was asked about the challenge of filling vacancies and how much it might cost the district.
We have had, especially with the pandemic, we've had several challenges, especially finding substitutes. So we've already increased significantly our funding for substitutes. We think this could add maybe another potentially $10 million to the budget. I will tell you, I think it's a worthwhile investment.
The head of the Chicago Teachers Union, which had demonstrated unsuccessfully at City Hall for the changes back in January, calling this new policy transformative.
Nearly 80% of the members are women. This policy makes sense, and it should never be at a negotiating table. In fact, this should be the norm for every woman who works in any industry.
Mayor Brandon Johnson brushed off concerns that this policy change might be a signal about how negotiations might go with the Chicago Teachers Union when his administration has to work out a new contract with the teachers next year.
You can go on to the next story.
union representing Chicago police rank and file wants the same paid parental leave that Chicago public school staff now get. FOP President John Cantazara tells ABC7 that he has spoken to the mayor's office asking for the same leave that CPS has been given. Last week, Mayor Brandon Johnson announced that CPS, including the Chicago Teachers Union that Johnson once was a member of, would be afforded the same paid parental leave as other city employees, which is 12 weeks for either parent.
You know, that's a wonderful situation, or a wonderful happening where everyone is realizing that we all, especially those of us that elected Brandon Johnson to be the mayor, April the 4th, 2023. And during his inauguration, he made mention that those that didn't vote for him is just as important as the ones that voted for him, because he has to be the mayor for all the citizens of the city of Chicago. There's a movement afoot where the community is letting everyone know that there's a community law that we all have to work together, united in peace, to support this law and endorse this law, because it's coming from the community. And that community is saying zero tolerance for senseless shootings and killings and violence, zero tolerance for the abuse and the rape of women and children, zero tolerance for the abuse and the robbing of elders and seniors. That community law that they're pushing is because enough is enough. An individual can't go to a funeral or repast. They're being shot up, like I saw in the media, how a funeral procession was shot up. I'm getting calls from brothers from behind the wall. They're saying they willing to be in support of the enforcement of the community law, like law enforcement wanted to be enforced. Soon as the mayor says he's in support and he endorses the community law because he listened to the community, the county board president, the governor, the state's attorney, the sheriff, the preachers, the teachers, the business community, and all the other elected officials, and all of their families, the young adults, and those behind the wall, all coming together, whether they speaking to one another or not, to let the individuals know that's engaging in this activity that the community is saying enough is enough. And now everyone's going to be working together to put the ones on notice that you better listen. They're no longer going to hide you. They're not going to cover you. They're not going to feed off on the excuses that people are trying to give you, where he must have been high or he's mentally ill. when we seeing the tapes of individuals like the one where these 4 guys come around the bush somewhere on the west side and shot those automatic weapons down the street, and I think an individual was murdered, and all they was doing was having a visual, if that's the correct word, like a memorial for someone that had died in a car accident. I understand the Homeland Security and probably alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and DEA and gang crime, and all of them is about to work with the community and supporting the community law. They're going to use the same technology, I believe, and this is my opinion, like the technology they have over in China, where they're able to see an individual, whether he has a mask on or whatever it is, and they sharing that ID and putting it out there so everyone can see. And then they're going to worry about those individuals, once they get apprehended, screaming about their civil rights was violated when they violating everybody else's civil rights. So I see my show is coming to a close. I just want to say to God be the glory. And we, the people who are parents, and we all are now targets of individuals that's engaging in carjacking. You can't go to the store. The seniors can't go to the currency exchange. People are afraid to go to funerals because their loved ones may have been a shooting victim. And I'm saying there's something sacred. And you got the 1% that's very much concerned, just like the 99% is very much concerned. And they all gonna put their resources together. That's the only way it's gonna come down. We did it in the 90s as a people, not as just law enforcement. And the people are fed up. So, young brothers, the people know who you are in the community. Don't get mad at me, I'm just a messenger. They're asking you to please stop. They've been begging you to stop. They're now asking you to stop. That's it, that's all, and like they say, Gator, you didn't told them, and we didn't told them, and just like the police officer that got killed, the community came together, and that's a part of community law. People talk, people listen, and they apprehended those guys within 48 hours. And I'm speaking, I want you to hear me, please. I'm speaking as a former criminal, been blessed by God to get a pardon because of my work that I put back in the community. I learned how to be responsible after I went from the Audi home to the county jail to the penitentiary. Only then did I realize, like a lot of the other guys that's coming home, and young ladies that's coming home, we are now known as the consequences of one's actions, that they don't realize that they're responsible until they're held accountable when they end up in those institutions. And all those innocent people that's getting shot, especially them children. They someone's baby, grandchild, in some cases, great-grandchildren, nieces and nephews of some individuals that's far more dangerous than the ones that's out there doing the violence. And they hearing what the community is saying. Because they now release back into the community after God has redeemed them. And don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger. You're going to hear it from a whole lot of other messengers. And some of those messengers are your loved ones. You better listen. To God be the glory. That's my story. Thank you.